everyone, and welcome back to Miss Key's Classroom. My name is Rachel, and in today's video I am planning and prepping for the 2023 school year that is very fast approaching. The students go back on Monday next week, and so I am currently trying to make sure everything's in order before I meet my new classes next week. In today's video, I'm mainly going to be going through how I sort of plan out my due dates and making sure that everything's nice and spread out throughout the term. So I'll try and show you as much as I can, and hopefully this video will help some of you. If maybe you are starting out as a brand new teacher, you've just graduated, this might show you how you can sort of plan out your term. Or maybe even if you're an experienced teacher and you're trying to look for a new way to do things and keep your time organized and things like that. So let's get straight into this video, and yeah, I hope that it is helpful for some of you. So before I get started with my planning, I'll just give you a brief overview of what I'm actually going to be teaching this year. So if you haven't seen my videos before and you don't know much about me, I teach high school English and history, and then I also teach geography as well, so sort of all the humanities and English. So this year I am teaching two subjects which I taught before, so that is Year 8 English and Year 8 History, but then I've got three subjects which are brand new to me or that I haven't taught in a long time. So I've also got Year 9 English. I haven't taught that since my first year of teaching back in 2020. And then I've got 11 Essential English, which I've never taught before, and Year 12 English, which I haven't taught since I was on placement. So this year is certainly going to be very busy, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot this year as I embark on these new subjects. But I'm really looking forward to trying my hand at new subjects, and also, I guess, developing my skills in the ones that I've taught before and like evolving those subjects as well. Because each year that I teach a subject, I feel like I just get better and better, and I develop different resources and things like that. So I'm really keen to have the Year 8s again as well, because I don't know, I just feel like that's really my specialty, and I just love teaching that year level. So that's sort of an overview of what I'm going to be planning for today. Okay, so now let's get onto the actual planning of my term. So obviously I've got a lot of prep to do, like I've got to set up my classroom and I've got to plan my lessons and all those sorts of things. But before I do any of that, I like to plan out my term, and I do that using my trusty term overview planners. If you have followed me for a while, you would have heard me harp on about these, but I honestly have not found another way that's better than this for managing my time and spreading out my workload across the term. The best advice I ever got as a student at university was from one of my tutors, and he said that especially as an English teacher, the number one thing you need to do is plan out your due dates so that you can spread your workload out. This semester I have got 4 subjects of English, which means I've got a lot of drafting and marking, and the last thing I want to do is make all assignments due on one weekend by accident and then end up stressing myself out. And so I use these term overview planners to make sure everything's nice and spread out, or as spread out as it can be, so that I have a sort of gentle stream of work coming in from the students rather than a complete influx on one weekend or a couple of weekends a term. So I'll link these term overview planners below if you would like to grab a copy. They're totally free. I have used these every single term since I became a teacher, and I just haven't found another way that is any better. So if you'd like to grab a copy, I'll link them in the description below. But yeah, mainly in this video, I'm going to be showing you how I plan out those due dates and use those term overview planners. Obviously, you don't need to use the planners if you don't want to. You might have another way, so you might have a calendar or something like that, or you might have a hard copy teacher planner that you use. And so whatever works for you, go with that. This is just what works for me. So I'm going to be using them today, but yeah, grab whatever it is that works for you, and let's get started planning. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to do if you're going to be planning out due dates is to actually work out what assignments you're going to be teaching. For me, I work at a school where we are very collaborative within our faculties, and so we often plan out our units together and therefore plan the assignments as well. There's obviously wiggle room within them to put your own flair on the assignments and things like that, but generally if everyone's teaching Year 9 English, all of the students are going to be doing similar assignments. So luckily for me, I know what assignments I'm going to be teaching. But if you don't know what assignments you're going to be teaching, your first port of call should be to look on the Australian curriculum. If you are teaching Year 7 to Year 10, if you're a high school teacher, if you're a primary school teacher, you'd go to the relevant year level that you're teaching. and check out the curriculum for your subject. Look at the topics you're meant to be teaching and then plan your assignments around those. If you are teaching senior school, then you would go onto the website of whatever the high school certificate is in your state. So for me, it would be the SACE board website. I'd look up whatever subject I'm teaching. So for example, 11 Essential English. I'd read through the subject outline and plan my assignments around that, making sure that the students are doing all the types of assignments that they're meant to be doing. So if you're not sure what the assignments are for your subject yet, don't fret. Go onto those websites. I can link a couple below. I'll link the Australian curriculum. If you're a teacher in Australia, that's what you'd be using anyway. And so that's how I would work out what assignments I'm going to do. You don't have to have everything set in stone, but just having a general idea of what you're going to be teaching and what assignments you're sort of working towards is a good place to start when you're planning out your due dates. Another quick tip as well is if you are starting at a new school or maybe you're teaching a brand new subject, try and find someone at the school who has taught that subject before, because it's likely that they're going to have a lot of resources and have already done a lot of planning. And if you're lucky, they might let you have some of it. So talking to your colleagues, gathering some resources that way is another good way to sort of get your head around what you're meant to be teaching. And then you can work out assignments as well, because you never know, someone might have taught that subject for the last 5 years and have it all planned out and have the most amazing assignments ready to go. So apart from looking at the relevant curriculum websites, make sure you talk to your colleagues as well. So now that we've established what assignments you're going to be teaching and what units you're going to be teaching, you can start to write down some tentative due dates. For me, I always start with my Year 12 due dates because these ones are sort of a bit more set in stone. We've got a lot of things to get through throughout the year, and so I need to make sure that I fit in all the assignments that I'm meant to teach and give the students enough time to actually work on them. Then I plan out my other due dates around the Year 12 ones, making sure that I don't have anything due sort of on the same weekend if I can avoid it, especially with drafts, because the last thing you want is having 3 classes of drafts coming in on the one weekend and you've told all of the students that you're going to have it back by Monday. So that's what we're really trying to avoid with planning out our due dates. I've already written out mine, so I'll show you what they look like now. Okay, so I have just written out the draft due dates and the final due dates for each of the assignments for each year level, as you can see here. As I said before, I always start off with the Year 12 ones. So I've tried to spread them out as much as I can, giving myself plenty of time to actually draft their work and get it back to them, and then give them time to fix it up as well. So these ones are just tentative due dates for now. Likely when I actually fill in my term overview planner, some of them will change. But this is what they are looking like at the moment. So I've got those sort of tentative due dates in place there. Another little tip when you're planning out due dates, if you're a high school teacher, generally assignments and units tend to take between 3 and 5 weeks to teach. Sometimes they go a little bit longer than that, maybe 6 weeks if you've got a big unit to cover. But sort of use that as a rule of thumb when you're planning things out. So obviously if you're teaching English and you've got a narrative, that might not take quite as long as a film study or something like that. So try and allocate the time to how much, formative work you're going to need to do in order to prepare those students for the summative work. So how much actual teaching you're going to need to do, and then how long they're going to need to work on the assignment. So that's sort of how I work out my due dates, if that makes sense. It's something that certainly comes with time. It's something that I've got a lot better at, working out how long a unit's actually going to take to teach. So if you don't get it right the first time, don't worry. You can always change these due dates throughout the term. And they always do change anyway. Anyone who's been a teacher for a while could tell you that the best laid plans sometimes don't quite work out, and that you do end up changing things and due dates get pushed out or brought forward or things like that. So this is just a plan, and it can change if it needs to. Okay, so now that I've got those tentative due dates planned out, it's time to start filling out my overview planner. If you're not using the overview planners, this is the time when you would get out your teacher planner or your calendar or whatever it is that you like to use to write down your due dates. So the first thing that I always do before I even start writing due dates on is I like to get up my school's calendar that has all the school events and public holidays and pupil free days and things like that on it. And I like to copy those onto my term overview planner. The reason I do that is because some weeks you might think that you've got 5 days for students to work on an assignment, but then you might actually find out that, hey, there's sports day on Monday, and then on Wednesday there's a pupil free day, and then on Friday there's a public holiday, and so your 5 days then is cut down to 2 days. So I like to plan out those dates as well and write them on my overview planner because it gives me a really clear overview of what the term is looking like. In South Australia in term 1, we've got 11 weeks, but it actually feels a lot more like maybe 9 weeks when you throw in all the school events and things like that. So having those dates down on my overview planner as well helps me to just plan around them and make sure that I'm not making things due when the students aren't even at school or something like that. So once I've written down all these school events, I then go ahead and I write in all my meetings as well. These don't really have an effect on the students' due dates and things like that, but I just like having that on my term overview planner as well, so I can easily look at it each morning when I know I've got a meeting and I can see what meeting I'm meant to have. So I go ahead and I write those in as well. So now that I've got all the school events and important dates written in on my calendar, I can go ahead and I can start writing in the due dates for each subject for each assignment. So if I need to change any, I can do that as I sort of go along, and I can edit the dates that I've already drafted and just make sure that everything is nice and spread out across the term. And then the last thing I do is I use my highlighters to do a little bit of color coding just so that it's really easy for me to look at my overview planner and see the subjects and their corresponding colors. Obviously you don't have to do this step, you can just have them written out if you like, but I like to do this because I find it works for me. The colors that I'm using match up with what's on my timetable, so each subject has a color, if that makes sense. And that's just what works for me, but do whatever works for you. You certainly do not have to color code everything like I like to. Okay, so now that all of my due dates are planned out, I am going to start doing all of my unit planning and my lesson planning. I'm going to plan my lessons for the first 1 to 2 weeks. I don't sort of like to plan my lessons beyond that in any great detail, just because I know that they are going to change. The first week of school, sometimes you end up having so much time with the students, and other times a lot of it is spent doing getting to know you stuff and madly running around making sure that everyone's in the right class and got their lockers and things like that. And so I just plan out the first 1 to 2 weeks of lessons for each subject, and then I will do the rest later on as I go throughout the term. Because I found in the past when I have planned out a whole chunk of lessons and I've made resources and all those sorts of things, a lot of it I've ended up changing or not using or adapting instead. And so I've ended up wasting quite a lot of time planning things that I don't even end up using. So right now that's what I'm going to get on with. I've got a whole video about unit planning and lesson planning, which I'll link in the description below if anyone is after that. I'm not going to show you all my planning today for that because it's kind of boring and I can't really show you much anyway. And so I'm probably going to end this video here, I think. I hope that some of what I've said has been useful to you. Maybe if you are a fresh teacher just starting out, you'll be able to use some of these tips to ensure you have a really smooth first term. But if you are an experienced teacher, maybe you've seen something in this video that you hadn't thought of doing before or something like that. So I hope that you found it helpful, and I wish you all the very best for the start of the school year if you are about to start your school year like I am. Stay tuned for some more setup planning videos. I'm going to film a classroom setup in the next couple of days, so hopefully that one will be up very soon as well. But yeah, for now, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye!